Hi, Mark here from the Tangibound Podcast Network and host of the flagship show, the Tangibound Podcast. Did you know that we over at Tangibound are always looking for amazing podcasts to promote? And did you also know that we are also proud nerds and geeks of everything from movies, music, gaming, TV shows, and comic books to wrestling, MMA, soccer, and football? Whatever you can nerd or geek out about, we've got it. And if you're interested, we can help you find it. And if you're a show looking for a place to call home, we've got you covered. Side effects may include upset stomach, dizziness, tumors, shakes, and in some rare cases, death from excessive laughter. Though to be fair, it's only sometimes. Other side effects may include diarrhea, gallstones, heart palpitations, and strong desire for cookies on the dark side. Talk to your doctor and visit TangiboundNetwork.com and see if Tangibound Network is right for you.
Sucks to the last drop. Are you gonna blow your head off? Take good aim and don't forget to duck. Life sucks every Monday and all the way to Sunday, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't care how you're doing, what's up or how's it hanging. I'd like to buy this world one last drink. Life sucks all of the time. Stick it up your sunshine, and then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day.
Hey everybody, welcome to a new episode of The Crazy Life. I'm Brian, joining me as usual is Heno.
Howdy.
And no Jen this week because she's off enjoying beautiful weather in Florida or something, I hope. I hope it's not terrible down there.
Don't you guys have, here we go again with the weather. Don't you guys have, I swear, I do it on Gotham Lights all the time too.
Mm-hmm. Like
last week, somehow Steph and I ended up on, and after a while I'm like, oh, we're on weather again.
Yeah.
Aren't you guys supposed to have some like gnarly storm system coming through or something?
Yeah. And like 2 days ago or 3 days ago, it was like 74 degrees. They were like, oh, Friday's going to hit 80. And I'm like, sweet. You know, I go to the grocery store on Friday, walk outside in my t-shirt and shorts, and I'm like, it's 50 degrees out. Didn't so much make it to 80.
Yeah.
Luckily, I run warm, so I was okay, but it's still, yeah. And then, yesterday it was like cold and drizzly most of the day, and then we started getting, like you said, there's a system coming through that's, for some of the areas around here, it looks like it could be bad. Some of it's not going to be that bad. But I think where I'm at, it's not supposed to be too bad. I hope.
So, on Friday, it ended up being just a gorgeous morning, mm-hmm. and I was like, all right, I'm grabbing the snowboard and I'm going. Mm-hmm. Last weekend of the year, I got to do this. So get everything in the car, go get some breakfast. I figure it's going to be cold. I'll go up a little later when the snow melts a little bit. So sure. I go have some breakfast. I'm all geared up. I get up there. And the parking lot's freaking empty. And I'm talking to Dave as I'm pulling in. I'm like, the parking lot's empty. He's like, well, it was, blah, 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 and, windy and da-da-da. And I'm like, and the lifts aren't operating.
No.
And I'm like, the mountain's shut down. And, as I'm pulling in, the flags in the parking lot are, they're solidly blowing. I'm like, And I hadn't even thought about it, like checking.
Right.
Like, I guess I'm going to turn around and go home.
Yeah, I would think so. It's either that or, like break into the place and just.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I could have hiked up. It's true.
Yeah.
A lot of people do that. I used to. I haven't done it in a while.
Yeah.
I was like, I'll just as soon take the dog for a nice walk.
Yeah, probably the better move.
Yeah, have a nice day. And that's what I ended up doing. Then Saturday, I played music, which was great. We haven't played in at least a month, just life stuff going on.
Right.
And
you just get together and like, jam, or did you have a gig or something?
No, we have just to work on the songs that there's gigs coming up. So It's like we have a lot of work to do, and we got together at noon, had some gear stuff to do. So I don't even know when we started, 1 or 1:30, but we went to like almost 5.
Oh wow, cool.
Which was great. And I really hadn't been working on the material so much as I've been working on my chops. And so, but that ended up paying off, because not once did I get fatigued, as far as playing goes. And it was kind of cool. Dave called me today and he's like, I am amazed at how far you've come along on the bass. Like, you were tearing it up yesterday. And that's what I said. I've been really working on my chops. So it's been, basically since the beginning of the year. Mm-hmm. I'm into this now 4.5 months. And there were a couple times when, especially like when we get in like little, like we're off the script, so to speak, and just goofing off, and like my fingers were just flying, and it was like, this is pretty fun. So it's been, that was my thing for the week, is I've actually felt really effective, I guess.
Okay.
You know how like you have those weeks where you're like, I'm combat ineffective. We've got wounded.
Yep.
You need to get the helicopters in here now.
Right. Yeah.
But
it's a survive, not thrive kind of week.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And not to say that I've really felt like that too much, but it's nice to feel the other way, where I literally felt like I was, it's like, okay, I was having more like moments of not wanting to go to the gym rather than minutes.
Right. Yeah.
And then getting in and really, really pushing myself musically, just playing a lot, that kind of stuff. And then, I had one thing that I wanted to talk about last week that I forgot to, is I had some good and bad news at work. And, the good news was we had a review. We had our employee reviews. Yeah. And so my boss, James, was like, I'm going to do all yours in the afternoon. And that used to throw me into a spin, because I was just, I just never knew with him where I was at, but things have been really good. And I'm like, okay, what's the worst thing? I was like, I know what the worst thing he could say to me would be, and I was like, I'm not going to have any fear, but my Omar and Antonio, the other 2 guys that are in the maintenance department, they are just so fearful. So of course I had to be a complete jerk and be like, all right, reviews this afternoon, start panicking. Like, I know, not helping.
Right. Yeah.
But I had this glowing review, which was absolutely awesome. So,
oh, good. Yeah.
It was just from top to bottom. And the best part about it was, I think I figured out why you heard some music earlier.
Totally unrelated.
Totally unrelated, but I just looked over and saw that I had a volume control up that shouldn't be.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, that would explain that.
Yep.
Anyhow, but the best part is, with all the struggles that I've shared on here about my relationship with my boss, he really laid a few of them out in a way that made me really happy. And a couple of them were the things that I enjoy doing, which is, teaching. I like, passing my knowledge on. Mm-hmm. And I like really, and Omar and Antonio, they've got pretty good English skills, but when it comes down to like the reading the instructions or some of the details about why we do things or that kind of stuff, not so much. And so I like to take some time and talk to them about it. And so James specifically mentioned that, like, hey, I like when you do that. I don't have a chance to do that. So please feel free to keep doing that. And I've also done things like where I've noticed something outside. We had this period of time where it was like he really wanted to be this gatekeeper and control the information and the assignments of things. And he kind of just came out and just gave it up. He's like, hey, if you see something outside, tell Sean, have him do it. You don't need to put me in the middle of that at all. I appreciate you doing that. And so those were really cool, because they were things where I'm like, these are things that I consider part of my skill set. And I'm never, I think he had his own level of fear. Yeah. That he's gotten past, which is, I don't want your job. Right. I want to supplement what you do. So that was the good news. The bad news is this. He's going to Hawaii at the end of May, and I was going to go meet Tony and Jeannie in Vegas right before he left.
Right.
And we're now going to be moving this big old air handler the week before he goes to Hawaii.
Awesome.
And I'm like, so he's like telling me the story. Like he's going, and he takes me over and he's showing me the plans and we're doing this and we're moving this and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm not going to Vegas, am I? And he looks at because he hadn't even thought about it. Honestly, he wouldn't. It's just,
yeah.
He's just not that type of person. You know, he's thinking about getting this done before he has to go on vacation.
Right.
Not anybody else's plans. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I really need you to do this and then to follow through with the rest of it. And I'm like, I know.
Yeah.
So I unfortunately had to break that bad news, which kind of bummed me out.
Yeah.
But great review. Yay.
Yeah. Yeah,
things have really
good.
felt good. And then, what was really weird this week is I had this, I don't like, it's funny that I say this. I don't like conflict.
Right.
Even though I happen to, it's like, I'm not afraid of debating somebody.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of standing up for myself. I'm not afraid of, but I still don't like conflict. And with the amount of times that I will get into it with somebody, you'd think I wouldn't, but I think a lot of it just has to do with, when it's in public.
Yeah.
So like I had a little conflict with someone at one of my parks and lands meeting, and I freaking carried it with me for days afterwards. It just made me really uncomfortable. And I get a lot of doubt and shame in that. Mm-hmm. And so this last week, another employee thing came up, and it has nothing to do with me. I just happen to know a lot about it. Mm-hmm. And it has to do with exempt employees and non-exempt employees. And my general manager is flat out wrong. He's just wrong. And I've tried to bring it up several times, and when someone's hearing you, but they're not listening.
Yeah.
He's got so much of his own, something in his head that's blocking any comprehension from any other source.
Yeah, that's always too bad when especially when you can see that's going on, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know where that blockage is because, and it's all right there. And so, but the answers have not, the questions have not been answered. So they keep coming back up, and they came back up again. And both the guys that this affects can't, talk to me about it. And I'm just like, yeah, this is how I would phrase it. These are the questions that I would ask. And I said, I need to keep my mouth shut at this meeting. Like, I really don't have a dog in this hunt.
Yeah.
I have a dog in this hunt, this other issue, and I will talk about that. But this one, I said, I really need to stay out of it. And by the end of the meeting, I had been fully in it. And I mean, in it, like deep in the vinegar.
Oh boy.
Yeah. And luckily the meeting ended on a decent note. But I couldn't help it. I was just listening to wrong. Like it's just wrong, and it's legally wrong.
Yeah.
And I couldn't help but do the whole eye rolls and everything. I mean, my attitude was all over my face. And the reason I didn't want to do it is I didn't want to have an argument in front of all the other employees.
Yeah.
Because that's where I think a lot of my shame and doubt and things like that is because I feel embarrassed or whatever it is. And I really don't want to call someone out in front of other people.
Yeah.
When you can have a private but the thing is, I'd already tried to have private conversations with him about this. And so by the time it was over, I walked into my boss's, we're all going to go have lunch. And I go, well, so much for keeping my mouth shut, and he laughed. But here's the wild thing. I did not get uncomfortable about it. I didn't doubt myself once, and I had no anxiety about the issue at all afterwards. And even one of the coworkers who was the one he's the one that brought up the questions and everything like that. He's like, well, that was uncomfortable. I'm like, actually, it wasn't.
Yeah.
I mean, it needed to be said. And I don't know what that means. I talked to my men's group about this a little bit. this interesting thing where I try to do everything I can to avoid conflict these days. I let people be who they're going to be. I try not to get into, to die on a hill where I have no control over it.
Right.
Like I can't control someone's attitude. I can't control someone's, thoughts and opinions. And I always tell, like, Sean's the one that's always asking me about stuff. Like, he's like, why don't you say something? And I'm like, the opportunity will come when it'll be the right time to say something.
Yeah.
But until then, it's either none of my business or it's secondhand information, just things like that. I try not to.
Yeah. And you certainly don't want to go fight on a hill over secondhand information.
Yeah. Over hearsay. That's the one thing I do, all the time, because Sean will do it. And I'm just like, yeah, Sean, I won't.
Yeah.
I just won't.
I'm the same as you. Yeah.
And I'm like, it's great that I appreciate the guys that you're helping out, appreciate that you're willing to do that. And I think that's why I don't feel bad about this one, is because this was the place where I could help some people. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I've looked it up over a whole bunch of times. So I felt very confident in where I was coming with it. And I think I was actually kind of starting to get through to the GM by the end of the conversation, because I said a few things where he was like he's a rose-colored glasses guy that when he gets pissed, it's all over his face. Like it's like bad poker face. And I didn't see it. That's why I said it wasn't uncomfortable. But anyhow, it was just a weird experience for me, because like I said, I usually feel this anxiety afterwards, and I didn't.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is really good. Yeah.
And I hope that means that I'm starting to be, appropriately discriminating in when I say things, following those, does it need to be said? Does it need to be said right now? And does it need to be said right now by me?
Yeah.
And usually and also the whole part about, is it truthful? Is it kind? Is it helpful?
Yeah.
Those things. And I think if you meet all of those standards, then you shouldn't feel any anxiety.
Yeah, I think you're right, because when you feel like you said, you knew that something was legally wrong. This isn't just an opinion-based deal. This is hey, here's the facts. It's wrong. When you kind of go at it that way, and like you said, you're also going, well, I'm helping these people out. It kind of, for me, it would do the same thing that it did for you. It would make me feel more like I was fighting the right fight. Like you said, picking and choosing your fights and going, you know what? This is one I can make a difference in. And again, it's a legal type thing. So it's like, this isn't just, what kind of coffee we have in the break room,
Exactly. Yeah. Cause that's the other part of it, is I'm like, I'm not only protecting my fellow coworkers, which I think a lot of small businesses, don't think about the workers and the workers' rights.
Right.
And then the other part of it is I'm also actually protecting our organization.
Yeah.
Because all it takes is one pedantic fun sponge like me to hire a lawyer.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
And I actually even said that in the meeting to put weight to it. I said, if I were either of these two and you did that to me, I'd hire an attorney tomorrow.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm like, that's how confident I am in this. So what I basically did is, I said, would you please contact our HR attorney and ask her these questions?
Right.
And we left it at that. And he said, I will ask. And I said, okay, good.
That's that. You know what? That's fair. If he asks and then still decides on something else, then it's that. Then it's that time to worry about it. Yeah, exactly.
So it was just an interesting, when something turns out differently than you're used to it.
Yeah.
Because that's why I didn't want to say anything, because I knew how I was going to feel afterwards.
Right.
So
it's like when we've talked about like emotional hangovers in here, how sometimes you'll have something and then it's a couple days later, you're still kind of, thinking about or ruminating over something or whatever. And it's nice when that stuff isn't there and you're like, oh, this is what it's supposed to be like.
No kidding. You know what? That's really it. It's like, this is what it's supposed to feel like.
Yeah. You're right though. I mean, if you were just being a jerk and just getting into a fight because there was one there, you know, that's a different
Yeah.
story, you know, but yeah, and I don't even think the whole, like, you know, on the distorted thinking thing, it talks about like the need to be right, you know, but I don't think that was what you were doing here, aside from the fact that you knew they were being wronged. You know, and to me, that's a big difference. You know, like just being right is like when someone says a word a little wrong and you have to correct the word, or, you know,
that you have to walk away a winner. And that was the other part. I don't even mind. And I think that was another thing I said to myself too. I said, you know, if it turns out that our HR attorney, you know, says that I'm wrong, then I'm wrong.
Yeah.
You know, I don't believe so, but, you know, but I'm okay with that because I don't need to be right. I just want the questions answered for Sean and James.
Yeah. And you know, it's interesting too, because you'd think they would just ask the lawyer anyway, just to cover their own butts. You know, it seems like something, it's like, okay, well, let's see what they say, because then you can make your decisions after that. But, you know, to not go to the HR person on something like that, you're kind of playing a little fast and loose, you know?
Well, I think the reason that they hadn't is because they feel like, well, she was part of the conversation in creating this policy, that therefore it has to be okay. And I said, she helped you create a policy. She's not helping you implement it.
Yeah.
And this is an implementation question.
Right.
And that's what it kept going back to, were these things that had actually nothing to do with the individuals at hand. Like saying like, well, our benefits are so good, this shouldn't matter. Like, no, that's irrelevant.
Yeah.
How good our benefits are doesn't matter. And then this idea, well, you know, companies are going away from that. I'm like, yeah, but the law still hasn't changed.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, just because every company in the world is screwing people over.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
That's where I had a hard time with the whole, you know, eye rolling thing. I was literally like, you didn't just say that.
Right. I'd be the same way.
Yeah, it was so. Anyhow,
yeah, I'm like you said, your boss is. I don't hide my emotion well most of the time.
I'm like, especially, yeah, it was. Yeah. And you know, here's the thing: is like my boss James. He honestly is better off keeping his mouth shut. He really is, because his anger gets the best of him.
Yeah.
And he has a hard time, and like even if my coworker Sean says, he's like, I have a difficult time talking in the moment on my feet, you know, like, you know, being ready to, with a comeback, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
He gets flustered. And I happen to be kind of good at those two things. You know, I can keep it so even though I might roll my eyes, I never get angry.
Right.
And I am pretty quick. If it's something that I'm studied on, I'm ready, you know, on that kind of stuff. So I guess, you know, I just felt like I was doing something good for the right people in the right situation.
Yeah, sure. Makes sense to me.
Yeah. So that was my week. How about you?
I didn't do a whole lot this week again. I had less headaches this week, so that's good.
Goodness.
Yeah, I think I only had like, I had a couple, but they weren't migraines. They were, I don't know what the kind they were, but they were just, I think they were still like sinus based, but it didn't go into like a full on, you know, crying in bed migraine or something. You know, they were the type that I took a couple Excedrin and I was like, okay, this is tolerable. You know, I can move around and go do things, you know, so, that was cool. Yeah, I went out with, some friends last night and, you know, we went to a couple bars and, you know, just, shot the breeze and had a good time. So that was pretty cool. And, but it was weird because I woke up today and I totally felt an emotional hangover.
Wow.
And, you know, and we didn't do anything wild or crazy. We just sat around talking with each other, you know, we didn't, and, but for some reason today when I woke up, I was just like, man, I just don't want to go or talk to anybody. You know, I'm feeling better now. It was just for a while after I first woke up, I was like, nah, you know, so.
That's how I had kind of like a little bit of that, like for several days where I just had like this low grade headache that, you know, like you just pop a couple, it's like, okay, you know, I can deal with this. I can go on, do my thing.
Yeah.
which I always find just odd where, that's not my norm,
Yeah.
And you have that. And then, on Saturday after I got done playing, I got home and I was like that same way where it's like, I've just put myself out there. I've done something and I'm like, I want to lay on this couch. I like heard the phone binging and I'm just like, nope, I'm done. I used it all up.
Yeah.
The bank is closed. There's nothing more to withdraw.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of where I was at too. And, I was thinking about it though. It's like, I haven't really had a day where I felt like that in a while. Like the emotional hangover thing, So I was like, well, that's good. And I guess I was kind of due, because it just happens sometimes, which is fine.
I don't know. I guess that's why I brought up, like I get that same thing when I put myself out there for a while, I don't think that's necessarily not normal, I guess would be the phrase.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah. But, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Cause I do know enough people that are like that. It just seems more common in people that are, I don't want to even say depressed, but introverts, to some extent. Cause I'm kind of in between the two, cause I will talk to anybody, but I'm not going to initiate the conversation, and I tend to just kind of hang back for a while before I talk to someone, so I've got quite a few elements of both in me. And I think that, and like you said, it's like then when I'm on and we're talking to people the whole night, it's just, that's what it is. It's just, I'm done. Yeah. It's like, that's it. My socializing bank is empty,
Yeah. Cause I'm like that, like when I read that article about our willpower, like we only have so much during the course of a day.
Yeah.
And if we can't find a way to reset it, like we just don't stand a chance for, eating the right way, avoiding the dessert, whatever it is at the end of the day.
Sure.
And I think that works also with just the ability to socialize in your emotional, bank account, like how much you have in you after a while. It's just like, all right, I'm done.
Yeah.
I need a day away.
Yeah. I just think, what it is probably more that I'm thinking is it's probably more with like me that the odds of it happening are probably a little bit higher. Because of, the other stuff. So that's probably more of, I guess what I was probably meaning from the beginning is that it seems more frequent, but it isn't necessarily more frequent,
Yeah.
But like I said, I haven't had one in a while. So, I was like, whatever, just like, a while ago when I was like, I've gotten to the point now that if I wake up and it's a just lay in bed day, I just let myself have a lay in bed day.
Yeah.
And that's what it was. Earlier today, I did. I just laid in bed, and eventually I was like, I need to get up and eat, and I got up and, no problem, and went and got something to eat. It was, it was fine. And like I said, now I'm fine now. If somebody wanted to go out and socialize now, I probably could. I don't know that I would, but I could. But yeah, that was, I can't remember what I was going to say. It was pretty fun night.
Does it surprise you that you ended up feeling that way, or
a little bit, because I didn't really feel like I was. They're friends that are good friends, and usually when I'm with people like that, like if I'm with Tony and Jeannie, I generally don't feel an emotional hangover the next day unless we're doing something like all day. A couple of times where we've traveled and it's, we get up for breakfast and then we go somewhere for lunch, then we hit somewhere, it's where it's like go, go, go kind of thing. Mm-hmm. That bothers me. But like last night we went to 3 places, but it wasn't crazy. Although the first place was a little crazy, but after that, it wasn't. And in fact, the last place we went to was a cigar bar. So, and I didn't smoke any, but I just sat in there with them talking while they were smoking them. And it was, on these big, like, leather couches. It was just super, just really chill, just sitting there. And so, it's like, that's like the best way you could essentially end it, was like, wow, the first place was chaotic and, it was like their 3rd day open, so things were really crazy. And then, the last place we went, it couldn't have been more laid back, So, I don't know, but, yeah. It also was, if I had to have done something today, I probably could have. It wasn't completely a, shut down kind of day, but it was, yeah, it was kind of tough to deal with. Was it Thursday or Friday? I mentioned I went to the grocery store, and the grocery store is a really weird place for me because there's a lot of times I go in there and I get really mad, and it's because I get mad at people who don't exercise common manners, getting out of the way, just being nice, like just stuff like that. And it makes me angry, even though I know I can't change them. It still makes me angry because in my head, everybody should at least have those manners, even if you're not like high on the level of manners. It's like you should at least, please and thank you. And, like I said, get out of the way sometimes. Don't block an aisle talking or whatever. But it was funny because there was if I wouldn't have known better, I would have swore that someone set it up for me to just get irritated because it was like there was these two, or a guy and a woman that kept walking around, and they were walking really slow, which is whatever. I'll just go around. But they kept going down every aisle that I wanted to go down, and I'm like, because I just wanted to get done and get out of the store. I don't, I don't want to be there all day. But, after a couple of times of that, and I was just like, I'm standing there, and I was just like, I pulled my phone out and just stood in the one aisle for about 5 minutes, and I'm like, maybe I can give them enough of a head start that, either that or I'm gonna be like, can I play through? Because that's basically, it's like, I need something right there and I'll be out of the way.
So funny.
But, I just took a minute and just jumped on my phone and, talked with somebody for a few minutes and was just, and then I was like, all right, I'm going to try this again. And it wasn't so bad then. They went a different way or something like that. So, but yeah, it's just stuff like that. Just like I said, it's silly, but it just sets me into a rage so fast, and I don't know why. And I'm not going to do anything about it. Like, I'm not going to yell at anyone or punch anybody or anything like that, but it does just make me angry, or like there was a woman behind me in the pharmacy, and she had a little girl with her, and she was just letting the little girl go over and grab, they have, canes and all this stuff. She's grabbing that and walkers and just screwing around with them. And the mom's laughing. She's finding it hilarious. And I'm like, wow, it's going to be funny until she cracks one of those $60 canes, But yeah, like stuff like that irritates me too. Cause, I was brought up to, you don't do that. You don't paw all over everything, no matter where you are. That was how I was raised, know? So, yeah.
I've been having that issue with like that, the people just being unaware of their surroundings.
That happens so much. Yeah.
It's happened way too much to me where I'm literally walking down the aisle and someone just like almost walks into me. Mm-hmm. And they're just like, oh wow, or they're sitting there looking at something, and I'm walking down, and they at that moment decide to turn and start walking right in front of me at a slow pace.
Right.
Like they never even felt the fact that there was another human being within 2 feet of them.
Yeah. I always look like when I'm turning around or if I'm coming out of an aisle, like going one way or the other, I usually will push the cart out a little bit. That way, someone will either swerve around me and then I'll go, oh, there's someone there, or, type of thing. So I don't hit anybody, because I've been hit with carts I don't know how many times. So it's, yeah.
And it seriously makes me wonder if certain people just don't have that sense of space around them.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. I don't know.
Like they literally don't have the ability, but it happened. I went into the grocery store just to pick up a couple of little things, and it happened 3 times. Once on my way in, once in the middle, and then once on my way out. And I was like, okay.
See, that's the other thing is I find that my tolerance for that kind of stuff is much lower if I only have like 2 or 3 things to get. Because in my head, it's like, I shouldn't be in here longer than like 5 minutes, because I know right where I'm going and right out the door.
Yeah.
And, like at this point, it's like, you are delaying me. But, in the grand scheme of things, it's like, you've got time. Just settle down, dude. It's like, you're basically in the store acting like someone with road rage, and there's no reason for you to do that, But like you were saying, I went over to the milk, and there was a woman standing in front of the 2% milk on her phone, and I was like, excuse me, and she looked up at me and then looked back down at her phone and just keeps texting or whatever. Wow. So I said it again, and she moved, but man, she gave me the stink eye. And it's like, first of all, I said, excuse me.
Yeah.
Second of all, it is a store. You know, there is product here people want to buy. So maybe if you're going to stop, move over by like the end cap or like the displays they have out, you know, where people walk around those things, you know, not right in front of, and especially milk, you know, you're in one of the busiest areas in the store, you know. So yeah, it just gets on my nerves, but I try not to let it do it, but there's just sometimes I'm just like that one honestly was the one that bugged me the most. And that was just because I displayed manners and she did not, you know, and it made me mad. You know? So whatever though, you know, at least she moved. She didn't put me in a position where I was going to like force my way into the milk, free cooler or whatever.
Cooler. Yeah.
Yeah. I just grab the door and just smack her with it, you know?
Just whack.
I said, excuse me twice. Whack it.
Friend of mine that he's got this great, he always says this thing, it always makes me laugh every time he does. He's like, you know, I'm not so worried about the lions and the tigers and the bears. It's the freaking little bunny rabbits that get to me. and just meaning like that, like it's no longer the big, huge problems that have them in fear, you know, like the stuff that could really kill you.
Yeah.
It's the little, you know, it's the rabbits and the little hamsters that suddenly make him lose his stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's like these little situations like this. He's like, I got the big scary things under control these days.
Yeah.
He's like, I just gotta watch how I am in a grocery store, you know?
Yeah. That's the thing is I know plenty of people that are very much the same way, that it's, you know, it is, no matter what store you're in, but the grocery store seems to be more of a source. Like if I'm in Target and the same things are happening, it doesn't bother me as much for whatever reason. I don't know why, but it doesn't seem to bother me as much. In the grocery store, you know, it does. I don't know. It's weird. Yeah.
So it's nice to know you're not alone.
Oh yeah, for sure. And, you know, it's funny though, because there's been times where I've seen somebody do something like you know, just stand in the way kind of a thing and just be oblivious basically. And then you'll see someone do it to them and you can see them getting mad, you know, and again, it reminds you of road rage, you know? Yeah. Riding with somebody, someone cuts them off, they're furious at him and then they cut somebody off, you know? Yeah. And you're like, yeah. So.
Oh, my 4 days without a cell phone.
Oh yeah,
best thing that ever happened to me.
Really?
I so needed it. I needed it so bad. It was just very enlightening as to when I start reaching for the thing.
Right.
And why. Mm-hmm. That was one thing. And then there were some times where I honestly needed it, but most of the time it was just when I wanted it.
Right.
And I really didn't need it.
Right. It's just the addiction of the phone. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And yeah, it might have been something for some piece of information or whatever it was, but it could wait.
Right.
You know, it was also nice to literally have because I found a really cool, Verizon has a messenger app that allows you to do like an out of office reply for text messages.
Right.
An auto reply, which is awesome. But so the other part though, it made, I literally was able to isolate for 3 nights, like, which was fun. I got into doing some stuff I wanted to do for a while, but I was at one point, I'm like, I am so isolating right now. Yeah. But the best part was today when I got to work, I realized that I wasn't grabbing for my phone as much as I had been previously, like, going to the bathroom, going in an elevator, blah, blah. You know, anytime there was a small amount of downtime.
Yep.
So what I think I'm going to do is after day 2, I realized I was like, yeah, there are times when I need to use my phone at work for a tool, but for the most part, I don't need it. So I can leave it in my backpack.
Yeah.
And if I do need to get it because I need it, I can just go grab it.
Right.
So it was a good thing.
That's not that's not a bad idea at all to, you know, especially at work to do that, you know.
It was just a nice little like reset.
Yeah. You're going to miss it so much in the elevators and bathroom though. No.
That was just weird.
Yeah. I'm really weird about my phone too. Is like I'm wholeheartedly addicted to it. Like I'm not even gonna try to deny that. But it's weird how sometimes I just won't fool with it. I just don't want anything to do with it. And I think I've mentioned it before. I tend to do that with like electronics in general. Like I'll just all of a sudden be like, I don't feel like getting online, and I won't get on my laptop. I'll barely be on my phone. Won't use my tablet or anything. It's just, it's almost like in my head, it's like you need to take some days off. And so I usually 2 or 3 days, and then I'm like, okay, and I can go back. It's like I get burnt out basically. And I actually kind of just been going through one of those the last few days because I've been getting a lot of messages from people on Twitter like, are you okay? Because I haven't been on or a lot of the groups very much the last few days because I just wasn't feeling it. Plus, like last night I was out. When I go out with people, I had my phone out the whole night, but I really wasn't doing much on it. Like I had it out more so to take pictures of beer to check them in on Untapped. That was about, that was really about it. I didn't I texted with somebody a little bit, but that was basically it. But we all did that, so it wasn't like I was the only one. Everybody was doing that. And usually when we go out and do stuff like that, my phone kind of stays in my pocket for the night. And, and I like that. I like that I'm not one that like, as I'm drinking or something like that it's get the phone out and just become an idiot on the phone or whatever. I just put it away, and I'm like I've had people like, oh, this will be fun, drunk Brian, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, you probably won't see anything from me. Maybe when I get home, but otherwise I was like, probably not. I was like, my phone generally stays in my pocket, and it's not it's not something that I was like, I have to do this. It's just my natural instinct to do it. So yeah. So I get you about feeling that way, because it really is. It is really amazing how when you kind of stay away from them for a little bit, how you feel so much different. That you don't feel that draw, like you said, that where it's like, the first thing you do when you wake up is reach over for your phone, or like you said, that first time you have a 10 seconds somewhere, like, people all the time, you see them at stoplights doing it, Yeah. And so, yeah.
I think overall when I look at like, why did I feel effective this week? Mm-hmm. It's because I think I was on the right side of my habits versus the bad side of my habits.
That makes sense. Mm-hmm.
Whereas I was tending to pick up my guitar, my bass, rather than picking up the phone when I got home.
Right.
I was sitting down and I was doing something that I may have on a to-do list, rather than, goofing off. And Sharon's been house sitting, so I need to take the dogs out for the walks. I need to, do all the stuff in the house and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I think overall, what makes me a happier person is when I do look at what my habits are, and are they doing something for me, or are they taking away? Are they benefiting me, or, are they an asset, or are they a liability?
Right. Well, and it makes sense too. If you looked at using your phone and go, wow, this is really just sucking my time. It's really not doing anything for me. It's like you said, it's like that's time I could be playing music or doing something on a to-do list or whatever. And I'm the same way. And it's honestly why, honestly, I haven't played video games on my, Xbox, PS4, anything like that. It's probably been 2 weeks now. And a lot of it is when I'm sitting there playing, there's various times that I'll be like, I should be doing something else, know? And it's not really true. I just, for some reason, feel guilty for playing a video game, So,
I think it's a good question, is like, is this serving me, or am I a slave to it?
Yeah.
And I think that when I do turn that around, I feel better. So, go figure. Maybe I might actually do it again.
Well, yeah, you gain some control back, is what it is.
Unfortunately, I'm kind of dumb for a smart guy.
Yeah. No, like I said, man, I'm right there with you. If I would have had the same reaction you had last week with, looking at the other phones and, should I get another one? Yeah. All that kind of dumb stuff. So, yeah. Oh man. All right. Well, you want to get into our topic?
Yeah,
here?
we got a good topic tonight.
Mm-hmm. I can't remember what it is now.
So for a little pull back the curtains, usually before we podcast, we're just talking and maybe throwing around some ideas or something that we've seen. And so we were just talking about some stuff that, I'd read and various things like that and blah, blah, blah. And kind of we're working around this one little topic. And then we quite literally opened up an article that expressed out exactly what we had just been talking about in 6 easy steps.
Right. Yeah.
Now you can have this too.
Right. But wait, there's
more.
Oh man. Yeah.
It's too funny.
Mm.
Yeah. So we've got 6 lies you might believe about therapy. Debunking misconceptions that may be holding you back from seeking help.
Yeah. And I think this is a good thing to cover anyway, because so many people avoid it for reasons we'll get into as we go through this. But, it's something that if you feel you need help, go get the help. Go check to make sure that, you don't, I don't know, whatever it is, whatever you go with afterwards, but just don't put it off.
Yeah, and it's about getting past fears and our preconceived opinions, which I know I had plenty.
Oh, I did too.
Before going seeing a therapist.
Yeah, I did totally too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
So let's see. Our first one is all therapy is the same. And I'm just going to read some of these. The paragraphs are rather short. While there may be familiar elements in the first few sessions, like discussing confidentiality and explaining your concerns, therapy varies from one session to another and from one clinician to another. Even if 2 psychotherapists were trained at the same institution and use the same theoretical approach, there are many variables that can cause them to still be different, such as areas of expertise, education, personal experience, etc. Along those lines, you may be different if your time between therapy is in months or years. In terms of age, awareness, development, etc., you are the main factor, and if you have changed, your therapeutic experience is likely to change as well.
Yep. And that's, that's something that I thought was really interesting when I went into therapy. Was I really thought going in there that, it was going to be me basically like, okay, this is wrong. And then my therapist kind of, well, this is this is how you fix it. And it wasn't quite that. It was more just letting me talk and kind of getting a feel for where I'm at, type of a thing. So it was, but when I've talked to other people or I've heard other people talk about how their therapy is, we talked about it on here one time about how, there was a guy who his therapist made him write down like every time he had a negative thought, basically, to help him try to, first of all, see that you're having a lot of them and then start trying to work through them so that they don't repeat, and that's way more involved than what I've got. What I've got is mostly talk. She's given me a couple worksheets that I've used, but she's not like, you have to bring these back in or anything like that. She's like, here, I think this will help you, And I think there's that type, how it is, just there's people who a nudging will work and there's other people that need a good foot in the behind, and therapy reflects that. I really, I've heard both stories and I've heard others too of different techniques and whatnot, some believe in cognitive behavioral therapy, some are not real hip on it and, other stuff along those lines. So, yeah.
And I think it's one of those things where, like any conversation between 2 people, the 2 people are going to dictate how it goes. Mm-hmm. And yes, there, are strategies and techniques and blah, blah, blah. And like you said, my therapist used multiple techniques on me.
Sure.
She guided me along and listened and helped me kind of come to my own conclusions. Mm-hmm. And every once in a while she flat out slammed on the brakes and threw me through the windshield.
Yeah.
Because I needed it.
Like when, before I went to Chicago, or we went to Chicago, when I mentioned that, how she walked me through the worst case scenario stuff, when I mentioned that, the tone changed a little bit and it was more, you could tell she was more like, like, you need to do this. kind of a thing versus before it's like, well, try this. It might help you. You could feel that it was a little more stern,
Yep.
but, and I reacted well to it, because honestly, if something makes sense to me, I'm all in,
Yeah.
If it doesn't make sense to me logically, I'll fight it until I figure out why it's logical. So, welcome to woo in my head. But,
Yeah, exactly.
but like you said, that she's done that on a few things where I've talked to her. She's really trying to kind of push me back onto the road that I need to be on. So, or onto the road, like I haven't been on it, so
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
And one last thing is your therapist is your therapist. Therapist is not your best friend. This is actually a professional relationship. It is not personal.
Right.
And all they want is for you to get the help that you want.
Yeah.
So it's okay if you say, you know what, I'm not feeling right here, or I don't, whatever it is. They will even recommend you to somebody else. I guarantee they will, because that's their main goal, is to help you.
Yeah.
They want to see you. And if you're just not connecting, you're not connecting, and there's no right or wrong about it.
And that's such a great point to bring up, because I've heard of people where they'll gripe about their therapist, and it's like, go get another one.
Get another one.
I know sometimes insurances are, real tricky about that and stuff, but if it's within your capabilities and you're not happy with your therapist, go to another therapist and see, or maybe, I know you can research a little bit online. I've seen before to see kind of what their technique is, so you can find someone who fits more of what you respond well to or something, cause like I said before, some people need a foot in the butt all the time. Others, it's like, why don't you try this? Oh, okay. And then,
Yep.
So yeah, definitely, don't stay with someone that you don't feel you're getting anything out of. Doesn't mean they're a bad therapist. It just means that you just don't fit.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I've heard some stories about bad therapists, but
yeah. Well, and that kind of the second one is, just talking about my problems won't do anything. And it says, on the surface, this can be accurate, but psychotherapy isn't just talking. Therapists are trained in the art of language, and with your goals in mind, clinicians have intentional discussions around your concerns. If you're in therapy and it seems like you're just talking, you may not be able to see the carefully crafted conversation, allowing you to discuss key elements of your presented problem, brainstorm solutions, and create a plan. The conversation feels effortless. This may be due to an excellent therapeutic bond. This rapport is critical in fostering your ability to grow in therapy. Nevertheless, if therapy feels like you are chatting with a friend and growth isn't seen over the course of time, it's possible that your selected helper isn't the right fit to help you foster your therapeutic goals, which is pretty much where you were getting at.
Yep.
Just
and
there.
It's so true. It's like, Tony and I have been best friends for 1,000 years, and we both know we could talk to each other about anything in the world, but I still would rather go to my therapist to talk about stuff. Because even though Tony's my friend, I know he's on Team Brian, all this stuff, but there's still absolutely zero judgment that you feel anyway. If you have a good therapist, you'll feel zero judgment. And they just, like you said in that, mine lets me talk, and then she kind of, when at a certain point, she'll interject and ask me questions, or where, like you said, she did real carefully just nudging the conversation back and forth. But I'm the one with the agenda going in, not her. Cause I talk about something different a lot of times every time I go, kind of what's bugging me right now, and, she doesn't go, well, we were going to talk about this, once or twice that happened, but most of the time it's, what do you want to talk about today, basically, and that's great. If I went in there and felt like she was pushing the agenda, I'd go to somebody else.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the misconceptions that I had going in, was kind of not understanding, what was going to happen, how, it's like, I had kind of a feeling of like, okay, this is what I want to talk about, and it went where it went with just a couple, I would talk, was obviously, there was a question asked, and I was open and honest, and within that question, she directed me in a certain place, that I hadn't even thought about.
Right.
I hadn't even considered it because I had my own preconceptions.
Yeah.
That were, frankly wrong. And so this idea of like, well, just talking about my problems won't do anything. Well, talking is the start. It's
and honestly, how many times have I said on here that coming out of therapy, I feel lighter?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If nothing else, that's like, like saying that massages won't help you feel any better. You know what I mean? It's like, it may not help you feel better for a month, but right now, like I walk out of therapy most of the time and I'm like, I just feel lighter, plus I feel lighter. I've got a little bit of a game plan to work on certain things, so it's like, I feel lighter because I got all the negativity out. I now have a game plan for positivity. So now I'm like, let's go. Let's get after it, basically. I mean, I feel physically or mentally exhausted a lot of times coming out of there, but it's in the best possible way, So I strongly disagree if anyone says, it won't do, it just talking doesn't help. It's like, no, just talking to some people doesn't really help because either they're not listening, they judge you, they interrupt you a bunch, those kind of things. The therapists don't do that unless it's for your own benefit.
Yep.
And like mine, the first time I went in there and she was like, do you want to schedule another one? And I was like, sure. She's like, when? And I was like, I don't know. When is normal? And she's like, whatever you want to do. She's like, you can come once a week, twice a week, monthly. Whatever. And I was like, oh, I expected her to be like, okay, I'll see you again in 2 weeks. Or, that has not been the case, every time. And even like now, the last time I was in there, when she asked when I wanted to schedule again, I was like, well, can we push it another week out and let's just see how I go, or how I feel when I come back in. Like, do I then feel like, that was too long, because ultimately that's my goal, is to make it to where I don't have to go all the time, or you know what I mean? I go regularly, but it's not like every week or something. So, yeah,
it's kind of interesting how it's like you just like this thing, it's talking about, you're going to be talking about your problems, your, issues, and you get to control your recovery, basically.
Yeah.
You
really do. It's amazing.
Yeah. That particular, one thing is like, just talking about my problems won't do anything. And it's like, yeah, well, how well has not talking about your problems done for you? It's just one of those ones that it's so easy to just turn it around.
And that's kind of where I got before I finally went in, for therapy, was I was like, basically like you said, it's like, the two, my first thing was that, I don't need it because logically I'll work my way through everything, which was a real, like, I didn't realize how distorted that was, and the other was like that. It's like, I don't, it's not going to do anything for me. And boy, was I wrong. But yeah, she also mentioned to me that, like, cause when I was like, well, I even said, I was like, well, how long do people usually, go to therapy? And she was like, until they feel that they aren't getting anything or don't need it anymore. And I was like, huh. Cause again, for years and years, there's that stigma from TV and different stuff to where, the therapist is just going to milk you, for all the money they can get off of you type of thing. And that's not the case. So.
Yeah, not at all.
Yeah. Not with a good one. I'm sure there's some out there that may do it, but,
Yeah.
Those are the ones you watch out for. If you get that vibe, go find someone else.
Exactly. Same, but that goes, it really goes with anyone that you're putting your health and well-being into, whether it's a chiropractor, your doctor, whatever it is.
Yeah. I did it in physical therapy once.
Yep.
I went to physical therapy and the woman, or the guy that I had, asked me if it was okay cause he was training somebody, and asked if it was okay, that they take part in everything. And I was like, yeah, cool. Cause I generally say yes to that stuff. Because I know that's how they have to learn, Yep. And, so I was like, yeah, that's cool, whatever. And he basically didn't talk to me for the whole session. Or he'd be like, do this. And then he'd just yak with her. And I was like, wow, I feel like I'm not even here. I feel like if I could just walk out and you wouldn't know it, So I called my doctor and was like, I need a different therapist because this isn't going to work for me. you know?
Yeah.
Got a different place. They were super nice, perfect for me, you know? It was, same with this kind of stuff. You know, I've known people, what's his name? The guy that had that podcast, Wrestling with Depression, Marty DeRosa. He's talked on that podcast about switching therapists because he wasn't getting what he needed and stuff. People a lot of times don't seem to think or know how much power you have in the doctor-patient situation. I think we've always been kind of trained or just thought that it's like 90-10, you know, that you go in there and you're like, well, here's this. And then they go, here's everything you're doing, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Now, let's see, you already touched on our next one, which is I already have a good support system. Therapy won't add any value. Social support is definitely an influential aspect of mental health. In fact, I spend a lot of time helping clients create support systems, but therapy doesn't end once we build those connections. Your loved ones are not trained professionals. Psychotherapists are specifically trained in the art of listening, problem solving, and non-judgmental, unbiased attitudes. Now, perhaps you're reading this and your loved one is a therapist. So there. Well, due to the difficulty of being unbiased and balanced, therapists should not be providing services to their loved ones. Therefore, even if you have a psychotherapist in your life, they really shouldn't be serving as your helper. On the other hand, these handy professionals can be an excellent resource if you're seeking a referral.
True, yeah.
And that's one thing that I know from my friend who's a therapist is, you know, not only do they have all their education and that kind of stuff, they also have access to studies and to trials that are being done on behavior, on our physical connect, you know, how our brain works, medicines, these kind of things. They're more than just, you know, someone to talk to. These aren't studies that you can just jump onto a newspaper and find. There's actually a full-on database through a library that they, you know, get to be part of because of their education and whatnot. And they've also learned how to read these studies. These are things that you and I and our friends typically don't have that level of experience.
Right, just like lawyers, you can look at something that's all legal, like a document that's totally done by a lawyer, and you're like, okay, well, I think, and then your lawyer will be like, oh, no, that means this, you know, to where it's like they're just using fancy terminology for whatever, you know, and you get that with therapists too, which is, you know, nice. Because there's been times where she'll say something, I'm like, I don't know what that is. Because I'm not above that. I don't care. You know, if I don't know, I'll just admit it and I'll learn. But you know, then she'll say something else a lot of times, and it isn't even that I'm like dumb it down. I'm just like, I don't know what that is. If you tell me what it is, cool, we'll move forward.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I was brought up, you know, if you didn't know what a word was, go get the dictionary and learn it, you know?
Yeah.
Which is why I ended up in, you know, a variety of spelling bees because, you know, my vocabulary was pretty vast for a elementary school kid. But, yeah.
But yeah, for sure that they, our friends are doing what we're doing typically is they're also waiting for their turn in a conversation.
Yeah.
They're going to tend to want to fix you. They're not perfect, just like, you know, I'm not perfect. It takes me a lot of work to just keep my mouth shut and listen.
Yeah.
You know, and not interject or try to fix the person or do that kind of stuff. Yeah. Whereas therapists they've spent a lot of time doing this.
Like for me, I don't know how many times I've been told by people that they like talking to me because I tend to disarm people and that I listen well. And it's funny though, because it's so hard for me to be a good listener because in my head, there's like 1,000 things going you know, and if there's something that like triggers my curiosity, oh, Lord help them, you know, cause I'm like, why this, why, you know, like, like a little kid going through the why stage. It's just, like I said, I need things to be logical for me. It's something, you know, and I've gotten way better about it because that was a control issue, you know, but, but I always try to do that, you know, and that's, it isn't easy to do because we all do want to, because we want to help, You know, we generally want to help.
We do.
And it's like, well, have you tried this? And it's like, yeah, your therapist will already pretty much know what you have and haven't tried, or they won't suggest certain things that are weird and crazy. But, you know, it's like you said, they've got training in different things. Like most of your friends don't have counseling training. They haven't been trained how to talk to people a little bit, or like you said, to nudge them in the conversation and, you know, all that. And honestly, like I mentioned earlier, you know, I could talk to Tony, you know, you, Jeannie, Jen. I have a great support system, you know, and I fully understand and am very thankful that I do. But I still like the fact that I can walk into that room. In fact, I'm going tomorrow. I can walk into that room. I can say whatever I want to say. Nobody's feelings are going to be hurt. Well, you know, unless I was a jerk to her or something, but you know, you know, whatever's happening in my life, if I tell her, she's just going to react professionally, you know, she's not going to interject her opinion, you know, as far as like, you know, like, well, if I was you, you know, So there's something really freeing about that, you know? Because I will talk to my friends about a lot of stuff, but there are things I've talked about in therapy that I don't talk with other people about, because it's something more that it's like, it's a me problem. Like something I know is in my head, and no, you know, other people don't see it, because it'll be like how my brain works. So I'll talk to her to see if there's a way to kind of, like I was just saying, I have 1,000 thoughts going, and I was like, I'd really like to slow my head down, because that's why I can't focus to read anymore. Is my brain's just ding, 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 you know, like a pinball machine. So, you know, stuff like that. And then there's some other stuff, but you know, it's a very powerful thing. I mean, at least for me, it has been.
Yeah. And it really was for me too, because even though like not only was I, you know, working within a support system as part of 12-step, group, I was still seeing a therapist. And it turned out that there was definitely things that she could offer that the other didn't, but that doesn't mean that one was more than the other. It's like the therapist works in conjunction with your support system.
Yep.
Because one of the things that I know from my own experience with recovery is that, we sit around and we talk about what we're doing in our lives to stay sober, and not just, you know, physically sober, but also emotionally sober.
Yeah.
We talk about all these things, and we talk about our experiences and what we've done and that kind of stuff. We still got to go out and practice it.
Yeah.
And usually your immediate support system is who's the first, and you know, your coworkers, those are the people that you are going to be interacting with more often than anybody else.
Yeah. You're right. Yeah.
And that's why your support system is very important, you know, and it has to be part of it, because they're the people. And that's the other part about it is like you get to walk into your therapist and talk about your support system too.
True. Good or bad.
Not gossiping.
Yeah. I was going to say good or bad, you can do it, you know, or, you know, like I've asked a couple of times, like, hey, somebody blah, blah, like they do or understand things this way. What can I do to, you know, help them help me, basically? Or, you know, there's those kind of questions that they don't need to know, but I need an answer to. That way I can, you know, because in the end it benefits me. So,
that's
you know, even if that's your driving factor in it, but,
but it's part of the deal is to, you know, because your friends, if they're your real friends, they're going to ask you, how can I help you best? Mm-hmm. And they're going to.
Yeah. And if you don't seek some help, you really don't know. Like I was saying, you know, you can feel like you're approaching everything very logically and could be way off the path, you know, and think you're doing great, but you're actually just crashing through trees in a forest, you know. And, you know, and your friends, if they don't have the same things, they may likely be like, this seems like a good way, you know? So, you know, that's, again, not to dump on friends and family and stuff. Cause like we both said it's very important, but like I said, I recommend somebody going to therapy at least a couple of times just to see if it helps them, you know?
Yeah.
Because you know, when I went in, I was similar to I was kind of like you in that I had an agenda, but I also was like, I need to not have an agenda because I remember you saying that you had an agenda and, threw it out right away, basically. So but after going twice, because after the first one, I'm like, I'm not sure. Went the second time and I'm like, yeah, man, this is going to work for me, So.
Yeah, I was lucky in that I had a couple of real serious epiphanies in there that made me go, okay.
Yep. Like, honestly, in therapy is where it finally clicked in my head that I wasn't being logical with my thinking.
Yeah. That's it.
And it was because we talked about distorted thinking. That's where it clicked for me. And since then, I now look at things differently to see if it's actually logical or if it's, depression logical, for lack of a better term, So, yeah, there's a lot of good, because if you go a couple times and it doesn't work out, okay, just don't go anymore. Like you said.
You can always have a refund on your misery.
So true. So
number 4 is therapy is for crazy people. This cringeworthy statement is riddled with stigma. However, it's the most common misconception I hear about therapy. Our image of therapy is so skewed. Needing mental health care does not mean someone is crazy. It just means they are brave enough to ask for help when they need it. Society's perception of those who seek mental health care often involves images of someone who lacks the capacity to think clearly, hold a job, live independently, be a loving parent or partner, and so on. Yes, individuals dealing with those concerns are in therapy, but so are thousands of others who don't fit that picture. This distinct black and white functioning versus non-functioning view of mental health care can cause real symptoms to go unchecked, often making real concerns worse. Just because a person is fully functioning doesn't mean they can't also grow in therapy.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yeah, this is one of those things. If I hear anybody say that in my life now, they're going to get a talking to. I'm going to serve some facts, because like it says, that can be very damaging to the overall movement of mental health, because it's been on TV for years. Every time someone goes into therapy, what's the first thing someone says to them? Something about them being crazy, and it's, like even I love the episode of The Simpsons where Homer goes into the psych ward basically, but at the same time, it's kind of like it was only based on crazy versus not crazy, which gave a great joke at the end of the show where like, I can't tell who's not crazy. And Homer's like me and I have a certificate, That's why I said, it's like, I can laugh at it, but at the same time, it's like, I want people to know how damaging that can be, because by doing that, you're severely minimizing someone reaching out for help. It's like laughing at someone drowning. Yeah. They're reaching for a life preserver and you're like, So,
true.
Yeah. So if you're listening, don't be that person. Because therapy's helped a lot of people. So and there's a lot of people out there that still need it and haven't because of these stigmas and stuff,
Yeah, and I that's the question I get more than anything else in the world is about 12-step meetings, and everyone has their perceptions of it, and it's like, most people's perceptions are founded upon something that they typically heard or experienced. That I'm not going to say it's not true.
Yeah,
that it's based on some kernel of truth.
Yeah, like the one I've probably heard the most is the like. It's like, well, I don't want to do anything, with like God or religious or something like that.
It's religion. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like you've taken it and said on here without getting into any one religion, you've just talked about whatever your higher power is. It doesn't have to, it could be a Twinkie, it doesn't have to be, a religious figure, a deity of some sort.
Yeah. I just had somebody ask me about that a week ago, and, I'm trying to be helpful and useful. And what I said is, if you can, imagine yourself sitting down and writing your own religion.
Yeah. Yeah, really. That is what you're doing.
That's to some extent what we do.
Yeah.
You can make your own religion.
Yeah.
That's about it. It's like, if you can picture yourself sitting down and writing down like, okay, if I could create my own cult, what would it be?
You're not helping, Heno. Yeah, you're right,
Okay,
though.
Maybe
I know,
that's a bad example.
Yeah, I
Maybe
know what
it's
you're.
a terrible example.
I know what you're getting at, though, because it really is. It's basically like, how do I want to define my life going forward? You know, and you know, you're using certain things, of course, that are guides. You know, like making reparations and different stuff with people. You know, but it's like overall the message is good, whether you agree with every step or not. If you stay on something like that, there's a better chance you're going to do good than trying it on your own. You know, and like you've said various times, and once again on this show, it's, you can always have your misery back.
And the reality is it ultimately, whatever excuse we have to not get help is part of that distorted thinking list. Mm-hmm. So if you're in that place, then, like I always said, my brain needed a good washing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's like me. I'm taking like a toothbrush to mine right now, Like it's a slow process, but it's getting there.
Our next one is therapists only tell people what to do. A good therapist will often avoid giving advice as they are obligated to honor and foster your independence. Although this may vary between therapists, expertise and methodology, therapy is usually a collaborative process. Skilled psychotherapist will help you learn how to make decisions for yourself so you don't depend on them to give you direction during challenging situations. They will help you build on your strengths and keep you moving in the right direction. Which I think is to me, that it sums up really what therapy was for me.
I agree. And I think that one right there is the one we just talked about is probably the overall biggest stigma, but yeah, this is also one that, like the therapist will mold you, they shrink your head, and it's like, yeah. No, that's not my experience at all. And I talked to you and that wasn't your experience at all. I've heard other people describe it on podcasts and that wasn't their experience at all. So it's, it's time for that one to go away too, because it's not, again, if your therapist is doing that, maybe that's not the therapist for you,
Yeah.
Mine has given me opinions a few times, but like I said, it's all from a professional, standpoint. And she backs it up with, this is why. She doesn't just go, well, I don't think you should do that. It's, I don't think, if she says something like that, it's like, because this,
Yeah.
Like my psychiatrist, he asked me if I drink. I said, I occasionally have some drinks. And he said, you shouldn't. He's not coming at me because, he's a guy who doesn't drink. He's coming at me from his standpoint going, you negate the medicine. That's bad.
Yeah, and I typically, if I ever asked for advice, what should I do? I usually got a question in response.
Yeah, well, like me when I was like, how often do you want me? Should I come in? And she's basically like, how often do you want to come in?
Exactly. It's when you sit there and you go, why am I paying for this? But it really is. It's. I needed someone to help me refine my own thought process and kind of guide it. The fact that it still comes from me, that's amazing. How amazing is it to go in and that somebody can help you? So this is the one thing that I think also a lot, like how long do I have to do therapy? I'm going to be in therapy for the rest of my life, right? That was, kind of, and because they just want my money, blah, 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 like you just said.
Yeah.
No, what they actually want you to do is get to the point where how they guided you, that becomes an automatic thing.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with with my experience with 12-step meetings. There's a point where it says that I intuitively learn how to handle situations that used to baffle me. Okay, that's a promise.
Yeah.
That means that I won't need to rely, it's like I will have all the tools myself.
Right.
How awesome is that?
Exactly. Yeah. And it's right. I've seen it in my therapy. I've seen that exact thing that, she's not trying to force me into, like, honestly, when I was going, once a week, at one point she was like, you might want to think about moving it to once every 2 weeks. She's like, to me, she's like, you don't seem to be getting as much out of this or whatever. And she was totally right. I wasn't. And again, see, that's the kind of opinion she's given me. But again, professional. It's not like she's like, I don't want your ass in here. Sorry for the language, but I don't think you're getting anything out of this. So don't waste the visits, cause remember I used to only get so many visits a year,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I had that same thing where I was getting to the point where I'm like kind of wondering how much longer do I need to do this? And when I brought it up, she was already thinking the same thing.
Yep. And because really as a professional, especially if they've, have experience or whatever, they probably have a good range of like what most people take, even though they won't tell you necessarily,
No.
So, yeah.
Well, because they don't, I think expectations and those kind of things typically aren't very helpful.
Right. Yeah.
You need to be in a place where it's not about that, this is endless work that never ends, but it's more about that idea of like, you got to stay out of the outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
Because then imagine how then you could literally be walking in and just basically making stuff up because you're going to tell this person what you think they want to hear.
You talk about the worst way to use a therapist.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you go in, this isn't in this or not, but Heno and I have both talked about this, is be as honest as you can, because they can do their job better when you're honest. Like if I told my psychiatrist, like, yo, I don't drink, and at some point he sees some blood work and he'd be like, or maybe he gives me a stronger dose of something that when mixed even with occasional alcohol could be bad news, Yeah. It's important for their jobs too, so they can help you, I should say,
That's it. Yeah. They can't help you if they don't have all the information.
Yep.
And our last lie,
which is the one that triggered us doing this.
Thing.
Yeah.
I'll be forced to take medication.
Mm-hmm. And I can speak firsthand on that one because that was for a long time a big part of why I didn't want to go. So, and in fact, when I finally went in, I talked to my general practitioner about it, and she gave me the option. She's like, from what you tell me, she's like, it sounds like you have, depression and anxiety. And she's like, I'd like to put you on this. She didn't say you're going on this. It's, I'd like to put you on,
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
there are different types of mental health professionals. If you're thinking about medication, odds are you are thinking about the role of a psychiatrist. Talk therapy can be provided by psychologists, counselors, and social workers. Depending on the presenting problem, psychiatrists might indeed become a helpful part of your journey. For many diagnoses, the power of talk therapy may serve as a primary treatment method. Whether medication is necessary depends on your presenting concern and its severity. And incorporating medication into your treatment plan is a conversation you will have with your therapist. If you have concerns about medication, you are encouraged to share and explore them within your therapeutic setting, which is basically what you already described.
Yeah, and by therapist, I'm assuming, because psychologists can't prescribe, because they're not medical doctors. They're not medical. They're philosophy doctors, yeah. And whereas psychiatrists, that's when I go see my psychiatrist, it's like a 10-minute visit, Yeah. Well, right now I'm doing it via like Skype kind of a thing, and it's basically I sit down, we connect. He asks me, how I've been and blah blah blah, and whatever follow-ups he needs to do, and then says, okay, here's the options. What do you want to do?
Yeah.
And, and he'll give me his opinion. Like if I ask, I'll be like, well, I think this would be blah, so, but again, I'm usually in and out of there and, once I'm back there, I'm usually in and out of there like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, because that's it. He's not there for talk therapy. He's just there to basically be in charge of my medicines.
Yep.
And
the thing is that no one's gonna force you to do something that you don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And all you're doing is avoiding the truth. And
if a doctor could force you to do something you didn't want to do, I'd be in good shape.
That's a good point.
My doctor, every time I go in there, tells me, lose weight. And, much like with a doctor in antidepressants or something, I just clearly don't listen to him.
Yep. Yeah, it's great. And because, we talk about it all the time about, go in and get the estimate.
Mm-hmm.
And until until someone has a chance to talk to you and you talk to them, none of us have any idea. And then at that point, it's like you can just walk out and no one's going to stop you. Yeah. It ultimately, as been said in all of these, which I really like, is that your treatment is up to you.
Mm-hmm. It really is. And that's why when I point out, every week when, we're like, seek help, it's like, kind of like you've got to initiate it for the most part. Don't get me wrong. There are some scenarios where you don't, but generally you've got to get to a point where you're ready. You're ready to make a change. Whether it's going on a medicine, therapy, combination of the two, whatever it ends up being.
Yeah, and I know, plenty of people who have gone in and have been given a diagnosis and given an official diagnosis and then and been prescribed medicine, and they didn't want to do it, and so they went and found other ways of doing it.
Yep. That's an option too. Exactly. It's I forgot what I was going to say there. There's something I was going to say about psychiatrist versus psychologist. Oh, another reason, like when they say go in and get the estimate, or go to, whether it's your primary caregiver or whatever, you'll generally have to sit down and fill out forms, that are basically like, how depressed have you been in the last 2 weeks? Have you this? Have you this? And it's, and when they give you those can be really important, especially if you are in there for mental health reasons. That's how they gauge. They have numbers that they look at each time. And if your number differentiates big from 1 week to another, clearly something has swung, whether it was good or bad. Is like, if it's good, then they'll be like, what happened basically? If it's bad, it'll be like, we should address this, cause I've had a couple where it swung the wrong way. But they will be able to diagnose you with essentially what you have. If you try to do it yourself, there's so many mental illnesses that overlap, that have really similar symptoms. So you could think you have one and essentially try to do something on your own treating it, and you may not actually be helping yourself. So, like I said, if nothing else, like Henno mentioned too, it's like, go get the estimate so you know what's going on.
And there is one thing is that you can't actually get therapy covered under your insurance without a diagnosis.
That is correct.
And that is something you need to be concerned about, especially if you are, if there's any chance that you'll be in business for yourself. Well, we don't have the pre-existing conditions thing anymore so much with the Affordable Care Act, but things can change any day. But that was a concern that was brought up to me. That is like, I've always worked for somebody. I've had group care. It's never been an issue, so I didn't care. Plus, I wanted to be helped.
Yeah. Well, that was my thing when I first went in and talked to the doctor, she diagnosed it, but it wasn't like it's not like an on paper official kind of diagnosis thing to where there's paperwork that can be seen by. And, when I went to go into therapy because of that, there was no, because honestly, the week I started, talk therapy, like the next week was my first psychiatrist appointment. So I hadn't gone to him. So, he didn't diagnose me with, depression or anything. So I hadn't seen anyone that could. So yeah, I found out from my insurance that they wouldn't, they wouldn't pay unless I had one. So, my doctor took care of that, but because she did tell me I had it, she just didn't she just didn't, figured like we've got it handled kind of a thing. So it was, because that would have been a problem otherwise. A real problem. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Because, I don't know what it costs now. I think it was like $130 an hour or something like that, or $120 an hour. So, I wouldn't be in therapy. That's what would happen,
Oh, yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And, if anybody out there, if that's your issue, like you don't have insurance and you don't have money, go to NAMI.org. They've got all sorts of stuff. And, if you contact them, they generally can help you find somebody within your budget or, see if there's something they can help you do to maybe get some sort of an insurance or something. So.
Exactly. Yeah, there are opportunities, and that's really what NAMI is there for, is to help you get the information you need to find the help you need.
Yeah.
And depending on where the area is, they can be, there's more opportunities than others. However, it's at least a good place to start.
Yeah, exactly. They do have a lot of resources, and usually you can find something or a tree branch off of that'll, help you out. So try there if you need to. Or if you're changing therapists, it's also, cause I think there's like reviews and stuff on there too, which, reviews are always grain of salt because, I've seen doctors get bad reviews because the person had to wait in the waiting room too long. And it's like, come on, like any doctor you go to, you're going to have that, like, come on. But yeah. All right. That was the last one.
Yeah.
Right?
Pretty good list. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was it.
Yeah. That's why when you started reading them to me, I was like, we need to talk about these because these are really good. Yeah. Because it is that overall stigma of, like with, especially as we've talked privately, about the toxic masculinity of, if you go, you're weak, and it's not.
Yeah.
What you're actually showing how strong you are because first of all, you're fighting against this stuff. And second of all, you're reaching out for help.
Yep. And that's what it said in that article, which I really love that too. It's just like, you're being brave and you're stepping up for your own recovery. Yeah. And the reality is I was the only impediment to my own recovery.
Right. Yeah.
I've said it over and over again, and I will continue to. There was really nobody else that was blocking me because I was hiding everything. I didn't want to tell people.
Yep. I have same road. Yep. I mean, different situation, but I did the same thing. I hid from people for, depression from people for years.
Yeah. Nobody told me, oh, you don't want to get help with that.
Yeah.
Because they didn't know.
Right. Yeah. That's like me. Once people knew that I had it, I started getting more of a, what can I do? What do you need? Those kind of things. And it's, had I done that years and years ago, I wouldn't have had to, figure out how to hide things and, put myself through that even,
Yeah.
But, whatever. At least I finally got help.
That's it. Yeah.
I wasn't ready for it then, I guess,
Yeah, that's how I look at it. It's like it happened when I needed it to happen and when I was ready for it to happen.
Yep.
And I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna second guess that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm the same way. It's like everything feels right about it right now. So,
yeah,
until it doesn't, I'm going to keep going. Or something changes, like I lose my insurance or something, then that's a different story.
Yeah, you deal with that then. Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right.
Good deal.
Yeah, this is, I forgot. Oh, if you want to continue the conversation with us, you can find us on our website at thecrazylifepodcast.weebly.com, or you can email us at thecrazylifepodcast@outlook.com. You can find the show on Twitter at, when I post like new episodes at The Crazy Life Pod. Jen can be found on Twitter at Jen's Crazy Life. That's Jen with a G. Heno?
You can find me on Twitter at Ida Heno, and you can find me on Facebook at Heno Heiter. Send me a message on either of those if you'd like to ask me a question about anything.
You can also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/Crazy Life Podcast. You can find me on Twitter at Stunami. My other podcasts can be found at salty_language or at saltylanguage.com. That show's not safe for work, so, wear your earbuds or whatever you gotta do. I forgot what was that. Oh, we're part of the Tangent Bound Network, which can be found at tangentboundnetwork.com. If you use Apple Podcasts or iTunes is what it used to be, whatever. If you use that, please rate, review, and subscribe. If you use Stitcher or Google Play or Spotify, there we go, or whatever, please use their like or share buttons to help us out. Excuse me. And then, obviously, as we've said many, many times, we're not doctors, therapists, or trained professionals. We're just a couple of guys sharing our experiences and our opinions. As we've said all through this episode, if you need help, please seek help. There are so many people out there willing to help you. Even if you feel alone, you're not. There's tons of people out there willing to help you. You just have to reach out. And like we said before, NAMI.org is a great place to start if you need to. We have other resources on our Facebook page if you need something like various other numbers and stuff for like talk lines and what have you. And then if you feel as though you may harm yourself or others, please definitely reach out. Let somebody know that you're feeling that way. Try not to be alone. And like I said, there's phone numbers over on our Facebook group if you need them. Or they're all over the internet. Find the suicide prevention hotline number or what have you. I carry a card in my wallet for them. And even though I don't really feel like I need it, I still like the fact that I have it on me. Even though I have a phone I could look it up on, but, that's faster. And if you find yourself planning, like suicide notes or how you would do something, to yourself or others, again, reach out. That's a giant red flag, and, hopefully you can get that under control before something really bad happens. And lastly, reach out to somebody. I actually went through and did that, last couple days because I've kind of been distant on, Twitter, and it's something I'm bad about. Is I'll be friends with people, blah, 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 all this time, and then sometimes I just disappear for a while. And it's not on purpose. Yeah. It's just, I don't know why I do it, but I do, and, I try to work on it. But, so when I see that it's been, I'll look and be like, wow, I haven't talked to them in 2 weeks, or something, and I'll try to reach out and just, hey, how are you, whatever. But let them know you appreciate them. Let somebody know you love them. Ask them how they're doing. What they need. As far if they have mental illness type stuff or just whatever. Because just a phone call probably will brighten somebody's day, or a text, or whatever it is. And again, you never know when you might save somebody's life. All right. Well, I think that was a pretty strong episode.
Yeah, it's good. Good information.
All right. You want to take us out of here?
I'd love to. Live your omelet. And if you're not into omelets, live your Belgian waffle.